Hey everyone, buckle up. It's time for an epic ride. In the near future, after millennia of human expansion around Mars, a colossal asteroid named Pi is hurtling toward Earth and is predicted to collide in 8 years, an event that could annihilate humanity. As panic grips the world, the United Nations convenes to address the crisis and grants China permission to spearhead a defense initiative, launching the Project United Nations Moon Shield, UNMS. The strategy involves constructing an enormous base on the moon, developing a supercharged nuclear weapon dubbed cosmic striking hammers to obliterate Pi, and harnessing the moon's orbit as a shield to deflect the catastrophic debris. Yue applies for a position on the moon. However, his self-description as a middleman and average individual fails to impress the interviewer. Instead of securing an engineering role, Yue is offered a maintenance position. Driven by his desperation to leave Earth, he accepts and soon finds himself en route to the moon with an entire crew of astronauts. 8 grueling years pass, and the team finally launches the superweapon. A moment of celebration marred by Yue's distracted gaze fixed on Langsing, the base commander toward whom he harbors a secret crush. In his spare time, Yue practices how he might confess his feelings, lingering near the base's entrance in the hope of catching Langsing's attention. Later, while secluded in his quarters and listening to music, Yue struggles to craft the perfect love letter. Meanwhile, Langsing receives alarming news. A solar storm has derailed one of the missiles, causing some asteroid debris to escape the moon's orbit. Within 27 minutes, these rogue fragments are projected to devastate the lunar base. Langsing immediately sounds the alarm and orders an evacuation. Engrossed in his music with headphones on, Yue fails to notice the commotion and remains in his room. As the crew frantically boards the evacuation rockets, he only discovers the exodus when he glances out his window. Panicked, Yue leaps into a vehicle and speeds off, noticing that all rockets have departed except for one. Determined, he accelerates while attempting to contact someone via radio. However, the nearby debris interferes with the signal. Confronted by a vast crater ahead, Yue attempts to vault over it but ends up plummeting instead. At that critical moment, Langsing launches the final evacuation rocket, leaving Yue stranded on the moon. Struggling, Yue climbs out of the crater as asteroid fragments pummel the lunar surface. He sprints desperately, dodging falling rocks in a frantic bid to reach the base which, in the chaos, begins to crumble around him. After being knocked down several times, Yue attempts a bold jump to find shelter in a crater, only to be felled once more. While unconscious, a massive asteroid fragment hurtles toward Earth. Upon regaining consciousness, Yue curses his misfortune and frantically tries to contact the UNMS. At that very moment, the fragment finally collides with Earth, triggering a massive explosion that decimates a large swath of the planet. Stunned and sorrowful, Yue can only watch in disbelief as he realizes that 8 years of relentless labor have been for naught. Returning to the ruined base, he makes repeated attempts to contact Earth, but receives no response. For 6 agonizing days, his calls go unanswered, and the crushing realization dawns on him that he might be the last human alive, a thought that plunges him into a deep, spiraling depression. In his despair, Yue decorates a room with paper to stage a pseudo-funeral in honor of humanity. Despite the desolation, the lunar base still holds enough supplies to feed 300 people indefinitely. Determined to finally live out his long-suppressed dreams, Yue decides to pursue his deepest desires. He first tries to break into Langsing's quarters by guessing her password, but fails. Undeterred, he grabs a board and slides around the moon's surface purely for the thrill of it. Days turn into a blur as Yue obsessively attempts every possible password until he finally loses his sanity. Frustrated beyond measure, he resorts to using an explosive to force the door open, an action that singes his clothes in the process. Now, with access to Langsing's uniform, he finds himself captivated. He creates a life-sized figure in her likeness and orchestrates a romantic dinner complete with music, all in a bid to confess his feelings. Lost in his fantasy, Yue even begins kissing the effigy, unaware that he is being observed. The surveillance reveals that survivors on Earth have been monitoring events all along, and Langsing, mortified by the revelation in front of her colleagues, is forced to confront the truth. Meanwhile, while civilians remain holed up in underground bunkers, the astronauts shelter in the UNMS's subterranean base. After some time, Earth's rescuers manage to establish a tenuous connection with the lunar base, but only via silent camera feeds. The radio remains inoperable. With Earth's resources depleted, officials estimate it will take 2 years to repair communications, and even longer to orchestrate a rescue. The UNMS chairman seizes the moment to provide a grim update. The asteroid impact has fractured the Earth's tectonic plates, triggering tsunamis that have submerged 30% of the planet's landmass. Entire cities are blanketed in volcanic ash and toxic gas. Soon, no flora or fauna will survive. In underground bunkers, survivors desperately try to nurture plants in jars, but without sunlight, life is fleeting. Widespread disease and depression ravage the population, whose daily rations are reduced to the bare minimum. Hair loss becomes a common affliction. In a bid to inspire hope, the chairman proposes live-streaming Yue's life from the lunar base, offering survivors a beacon of hope in these dire times. Since the feed lacks audio, the team hires a voice actor to dub Yue's dialogue, portraying him as a heroic figure. Langsing then makes an announcement over the base's speakers, informing all survivors that a man has been found on the moon and that the live stream will commence in 30 days. Skeptical viewers begin to vanish, their doubts rendering them silent. Weeks later, Yue sinks into a profound depression and contemplates self-deletion. In a moment of grim resolve, he ventures to a warehouse in search of medicine for the task, only to stumble upon an open food package he doesn't remember leaving. Opening the warehouse door, he is startled to see a striking figure lying motionless. Believing it to be a woman, Yue approaches flirtatiously, only to discover that it is, in fact, a kangaroo abandoned by the research division. Simultaneously, Langsing initiates the livestream, and the first image transmitted to Earth is that of King Kong-roo. The hired voice actor exuberantly exclaims, "What a fantastic day," as if the kangaroo had spoken. In a clumsy attempt to apologize for the mishap, the actor tries to play his flute, but is promptly beaten up. Fortunately, the survivors assume that the audio delay is merely technical, and they do not believe that the kangaroo is truly talking. Langsing then decides to have the voice actor provide continuous narration. Back on the lunar base, Yue pores over research concerning Kong, discovering that the creature's aggression and insatiable appetite explain its recent raids on the pantry. Determined, Yue retrieves a shovel and returns to the warehouse to collect the medicine. Just as Kong appears behind him, Yue waves the shovel, but it snaps in his grasp. In an unexpected twist, Kong seizes the handle and bends the shovel before viciously assaulting Yue. Desperate to distract Kong, Yue disguises himself as a female kangaroo. However, when he reaches for the medicine, Kong overpowers him and initiates an inappropriate attack, causing Yue's disguise mask to fall and leading to a brutal kick that ejects him from the warehouse. Moments later, Kong begins roaming other sections of the base. Yue, undeterred, unveils a 3D printed Gatling gun and opens fire, launching plastic projectiles at Kong as he scampers around. In a surprising reversal, Kong turns and chases Yue. As the voice actor plays an epic flute solo to heighten the drama, the two engage in a chaotic, hand-to-paw brawl. After an intense struggle, Yue and Kong knock each other down simultaneously. The UNMS becomes increasingly concerned as attempts are made to re-establish contact with Yue. When Yue eventually regains consciousness, he hears static on the radio, a sound that brings him to tears, as he interprets it as proof that survivors still exist on Earth. Unknown to both Yue and the UNMS, the static is merely caused by Kong's tail interfering with the cables. Yue and Kong gaze toward Earth, realizing that they might yet have a chance to return home, and agree to a temporary truce, though Kong immediately breaks it with a playful punch. Over the next 200 days, Yue relentlessly broadcasts messages in an effort to contact Earth, and he and Kong settle into a strange routine, eventually considering themselves a family. Since it has become clear that Earth's rescue is unlikely, Yue decides to retrofit the spacecraft from the old Apollo 18 mission, determined to pilot it home using his own ingenuity. As discussions among the UNMS staff rage on about whether they can use this vessel to help him, Yue and Kong set off in a car to locate the Apollo. Yue tests the ship and confirms it can be salvaged after some repairs. The vessel is hauled back to the lunar base, and footage of Yue's painstaking restoration work captivates audiences back on Earth. Impressed, The UNMS reviews Yue's profile and discovers that he is in fact an engineer, an ironic twist considering he had been relegated to a maintenance role. However, Yue soon realizes that the refurbished Apollo has a limited payload capacity of only 22 pounds, while Kong alone far exceeds that limit. With no other option, Yue reluctantly takes Kong for a ride and abandons him momentarily in the middle of the moon. Yet, true to form, Kong quickly chases after him and reunites with his companion. Upon their return, Yue delves into research on a more potent propulsion system, discovering that a prototype of the superweapon is still stored at the previous base. Determined, Yue and Kong set out in their car, laden with supplies, and make sure to travel only at night as the vehicle relies on solar power. The journey to the old base will take weeks since it lies on the opposite side of the moon. On Earth, concerns mount that Yue may not succeed because the lunar surface only receives sunlight for 14 days per cycle. The UNMS soon realizes that Yue has been inadvertently driving in the wrong direction to chase the sunlight. Although the trip will now take longer, at least he won't be stranded. Now Yue has 41 days to reach the old base, but he can only afford 4 hours of sleep per day. In the early days, Yue and Kong keep each other company, but the prolonged journey gradually wears on their mental health. One morning, Yue wakes up to find Kong not only driving but also speaking, only to realize it was a vivid dream. After a minor collision with a crate, the duo finally arrives at the abandoned base. Yue locates the hidden warhead and carefully lowers it to the ground. Suddenly, Kong starts repeatedly pressing a button, causing Yue to panic. Fortunately, it turns out to be part of an inspection program. In a fit of anger, Yue locks Kong in the trunk to prevent further mischief, then resumes his drive back to the base while blasting music to drown out the chaos. The raucous noise masks the sound of the trunk detaching from the car. Hundreds of miles later, Yue finally notices that the trunk is missing. Though returning for Kong would mean missing the precious sunlight, the overwhelming guilt compels him to backtrack and rescue his friend. Upon his return, as news of his selfless act spreads across Earth, a joyful Kong licks Yue in gratitude. Meanwhile, in the UNMS, Langsing orders the team to locate an old lunar dog from a previous mission, a potential key to aiding Yue. Simultaneously, Yue and Kong persist on their journey, refusing to sleep to maximize their exposure to sunlight. After over 50 hours of continuous driving, they realize the sunlight is fading, but they press on, determined to reach their destination. As the temperature drops sharply, Yue activates the car's heater to avoid freezing, an action that drains the battery at an alarming rate. With only 35 miles remaining, the battery finally dies, and the car grinds to a halt. Yue steps out, resigned, and waits for what seems like the end. At the UNMS, the team finally manages to coax the old lunar dog into motion, but it remains too distant. They attempt a daring shortcut by making the dog jump over a crater, only to have it fall and break. Back on the lunar surface, Yue finds himself lost in thought, gazing at a picture of Langsing in a mirror. Observing Kong chasing the reflected light like a playful cat sparks an idea. In a moment of inspiration, Yue tears off the car's door and repurposes it into a makeshift sled, which he then attaches to Kong. He activates a bright light ahead, prompting Kong to chase it, and together they traverse the barren lunar terrain on the sled. After a treacherous ride, they encounter a vast chasm. Determined, Yue positions Kong to leap across while simultaneously igniting some gas tanks to provide the necessary propulsion. Their daring escape fills people on Earth with hope and excitement, and an award is even prepared for Yue's triumphant return. Across the planet, humans redouble their efforts to rebuild, with signs celebrating Yue and Kong adorning newly constructed bunkers. Thanks to this collective hard work, the UNMS manages to restore communications with the lunar base within 3 months. Now, 5 and 16 days have passed since the initial catastrophe, and Yue continues to labor on connecting the base to Earth, an arduous task complicated by the outdated technology of Apollo. One afternoon, a burst of static finally crackles through the radio, sparking a surge of excitement in Yue. However, when Yue turns to Kong, he notices his friend fiddling with the cables. Testing the connections with his own hand, Yue's heart sinks as he realizes that all his effort and suffering may have been in vain. He might be the last human left. Overcome with anguish, he berates Kong before sinking back into despair. Meanwhile, on Earth, the UNMS estimates that it will take another month to fully restore communications. Refusing to surrender, Langsing uses the base's speaker system to address the survivors in the bunkers. He admits that Yue is not a hero, but merely an average man left behind by mistake. Yet, he emphasizes that Yue has labored tirelessly for an entire year, and therefore deserves their support. Langsing urges the survivors to turn on their flashlights and aim them at the moon, sending a message that Yue is not alone. At that moment, Yue removes his helmet and begins to suffer from oxygen deprivation. But as people on Earth unite with flashlights and even lighthouses, they illuminate the darkness as a testament to life. Overwhelmed by the collective hope, a tearful Yue falls to his knees. Finally, by day 613, the UNMS restores full communication, allowing Yue to see a human face once more. Following the initial celebration, Yue spends his days liaising with the team, who have uncovered Apollo's blueprints and guide him in integrating the old technology with the new. Now, Yue sees Langsing daily, and a genuine friendship blossoms between them. One evening, after finishing the repairs, Yue confesses that he had initially rejected the maintenance role during his interview, until he saw Langsing smile, which changed his mind. Moved by his honesty, Langsing admits that during the evacuation, she did catch sight of Yue near a crater, but chose to leave, fearing that rescuing him would have doomed everyone. She confesses she would risk it again. Meanwhile, an ominous object in space signals that something else is approaching Earth. The following day, Yue and Kong finally board the refurbished Apollo and depart the moon. Despite some initial turbulence, they reach lunar orbit and celebrations erupt across Earth. Within hours, the Apollo docks at the lunar station, and Yue and Kong set out to locate the escape pods. Back on Earth, devastating news arrives. Another massive fragment of the asteroid, dubbed Pi Plus, has been dislodged by the remaining debris and is now hurtling toward Earth, threatening to obliterate what remains of humanity. The UNMS concludes that the only chance for survival lies with Yue. He must pilot a warhead directly at Pi Plus, knowing full well that this mission has an extremely high risk of fatality. Volunteering to undertake this perilous task, Langsing contacts Yue during a live-streamed conversation. Unbeknownst to him, a microphone was left on, and Yue has already absorbed every word, resolute in his determination to protect both Langsing and humanity. As survivors are ordered to take shelter in bunkers, Yue tearfully bids farewell to Kong before sending him back to Earth in an escape pod. Then, with the weight of destiny on his shoulders, Yue launches the Apollo and navigates through a dense field of meteorites. Concentrating intensely on piloting, he dodges the deadly rocks as the Apollo accelerates. Unfortunately, the ship sustains a direct hit, causing it to spin out of control with a compromised thruster. At a loss, Yue clings to hope until Langsing devises a desperate plan. He must open the hatch so that the rapid depressurization can counteract the rotational momentum. The hatch, however, is jammed. In a fit of desperation, Yue kicks it repeatedly until it finally gives way, bringing the Apollo to an abrupt halt. In that moment, he sees the ship's engine drifting away, a stark sign that the Apollo has lost all power. With no other option, Yue is forced to manually reposition the warhead. Before setting off on his final mission, he tells Langsing that he bears no resentment for her past decisions and asks her to leave stream his final moments. Then, with a heavy heart, Yue steps away from the powerless ship and readies the warhead, delivering a poignant farewell to humanity. As viewers on Earth watch in tears, Yue straps on a jetpack and guides the warhead toward the incoming asteroid. Meanwhile, Kong's escape pod safely lands in the ocean. In his final moments, Yue sings softly, a bittersweet tribute to all he has lost. Despite his suit being shattered by the immense pressure of the asteroid, Yue presses on. As he draws near to the colossal mass, he pleads with a tearful Langsing to trigger the explosive charge. A titanic explosion follows, obliterating the asteroid, and symbolically marking the end of Yue's heroic journey. Over the subsequent 10 years, humanity toils to rebuild Earth into a vibrant, resplendent world once more. Though much work remains, people can finally breathe the fresh air again. The UNMS chairman retires, and a statue is erected in honor of Kong. Meanwhile, Langsing joins a new team of astronauts, returning to the moon to refurbish the old base and begin a new chapter. In a quiet moment of reflection, Langsing imagines that Yue stands by her side as she gazes at the remnants of Pi Plus, now forming a radiant planetary ring around Earth, a lasting tribute to the sacrifices made and the enduring hope for a fresh beginning. Thank you so much for watching. Your support means the world to us. Don't forget to subscribe and check out our other videos. See you next time.